Sorry about the abrupt ending of that last video. I had found an error in the problem and tried to fix it, but my microphone would not work unless I restarted the video. So hopefully we are back and this volume is working this time. So what I discovered is that they wrote the wrong equation here, because it should really be the books read is equal to 3/4 times the number of days that the person has read. So if we take 3/4 times 4 days, remember when you're multiplying fractions, it's got to be fraction times fraction. So we take 4/1, and then we multiply the top. 3 times 4 is 12. We multiply the bottom. 4 times 1 is 4. 12/4 is the same as 3 books. So they actually had their equation backwards up here. So let's go ahead and cross that out and write that books is equal to 3/4 times the number of days that the person read. Okay, the next activity that you are going to do is you're going to take the graphs and the equations and the charts that should have been left on your desk, and you're going to try to match them up with each other. Once you have them all matched up, come back to the video and check to make sure you are correct. So to see how to match them up, the first thing I notice over here is that I have points 1 and 60, I have 2 and 120, and I have 3 and 180. So I would look at my charts here to see where those ordered pairs are, and I notice that I have this one here, 1 to 60, 2 to 120, 3 to 180. So those numbered pairs work. So these two go together, and then if I think about what is the equation, what am I doing to the hours to get out the miles? Because it's hours versus miles, number of hours, number of miles. This would be 1 times 60, 2 times 60, 3 times 60. So I would be looking for the equation that miles equals 60 times the hours, which would be right here. So these three go together because this equation would be represented right here. These ordered pairs are represented in this graph. See if you can match up the other 5 and come back and check your work. Okay, if you are back, you have found the matches for all of the graphs and the tables and the equations, and you are just here to check your work. So this is the first one that we did together that you should have already. This one is the m equals 65 times h, which should go with 2 to 130 and 4 to 260 and 6 to 390, which is also this graph here. You see the equation 1 to 65 and then 2 to 130, 4 to 260, and 6 to 390. This one we have m equals 55 times h. If you notice, 1 hour times 55, and then the chart would be 5 to 275, 10 to 550, and 15 to 825. So those three go together. We have 1 to 45, which would be our 45 times h, and then notice on our graph we have 3 and 135, 6 and 270, 9 and 405. So these three go together. And then this graph is 1 to 50 here. If you look at the scale, it's going by 50s. So we have 50 times h equals our m. And then we have 8 to 400, 16 to 800, and 24 to 1200. So those go together. And last we have 1 to 70 here, which is 70 times h equals the number of miles. So 6 times 70 equals 420, which is right here. We got 12 times 7, which would equal 840, and 18 times 7, which would equal 1,260. So hopefully you were able to match all of those together. Now we're going to start on our packet, and that should look like this. This is, I hope, going to be similar to what we have done in the past, where you kind of give yourself the amount of feedback that is needed. If you're ready to roll and think you understand, go ahead and go through it, and then just kind of scan through where I get my answers and make sure you have the same answers that I have. If you get them wrong, go back and watch it more closely to see where you made an error. If you're not sure where to start or on your own, make sure you stop and try and think for a little bit before you go ahead and watch me step by step. Make sure that you are checking in after every every problem, like check in after A, make sure you got that correct. Check in after B, make sure you got that one correct. Complete exercise 2A, check in to make sure that one's correct. Check in after 2B, etc., so that you're giving yourself feedback as you go along and able to catch mistakes before it's too late. So go ahead and push pause and do problems 1A and then check back in to make sure you are correct. All right, so for problem 1, hopefully you read the problem accurately and read all of the words. Brian and Shanice are both training for a bike race and want to compare who rides his or her bike at a faster rate. Both bikers use apps on their phones to record the time and distance of their bike rides. Brian's app keeps track of his route on a table, and Shanice's app presents the information on a graph. The information is below. So we can see this is Brian, this is the number of hours, this is the number of miles. So in 3 hours he was able to go 75 miles, in 6 hours he went 150 miles. Shanice is over here, and we could read the graph. In 1 hour, number of hours, she went halfway between 10 and 20, so 15 miles, and I know that because of the labels here. In 2 hours, she went 30 miles. 3 hours, she went 45 miles. 4 hours, she went 60. And in 5 hours, she went 75. So at what rate does each biker travel? Well, for Brian, he's traveling 75 miles. And I'm going to say Brian. 75 miles in 3 hours. I really want to know how much he travels in 1 hour because that would be the best rate to go by. So if this is 3 hours, I want to get to 1 hour. I ask myself, what did I do to 3 to get to 1? I divide by 1. Oh, just kidding. I divide by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the exact same thing to the top. 75 divided by 3, again, I make connections to money. 75 cents divided into 3 groups would be 3/4, 3.25 cents. So that tells me that Brian is riding at 25 miles per hour, or mph. For Shanice, number of hours, here's 1 hour. I know she rode 15 miles. So the ordered pair is 1:15, so that tells me her rate is 15 miles per hour. Miles per hour. It says explain how you arrived at your answer. Here's my explanation for this one. For this one, I would say I looked on graph at ordered pair for 1 hour. All right, now we're ready for part B. So if you're ready to move on to part B, check back in to make sure you did it correctly. I see that we need to create a graph. Make sure you use the connection up here, how they made a title, how they made labels for their x-axis and their y-axis. Notice that their scale is the same starting from 0 to 1. It's the same from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Likewise, 0 to 10 is the same for 10 to 20. 30, 40. So make sure you're using your scales correctly and have all the appropriate labels. All right, if you are checking back in, you have completed this problem and you are ready to either see how I completed it or you are ready to check your answers and you can keep scrolling till where I am finished. So Shanice wants to win the bike race, so make a new graph to show the speed Shanice would have to ride her bike in order to beat Brian. So first I'm just going to title this. Again, it's going to be hours versus miles. I'm going to keep track of my number of hours down here and my number of miles over here. And if Brian was going at 25 miles per hour, in order for Shanice to win, she needs to go at least 30 miles per hour. So I'm going to put a 0 here, and I'm going to have a 1 hour here. So 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. Make sure that this space is the exact same as this space. You can't put 1 here and then skip a line and put 2. It's got to be consistent all the way through. Over here, I'm going to go by 15. So I'm going to go 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 100, let's see, that'd be 105, so this one would be 120, 135, 150. So then if she's going in 1 hour, 30 miles per hour, it would be 1 in 30, 2 in 60, 3 in 90, 4 in 120, 5 and 150. If she travels at this rate, she would beat Brian because she would be going more miles per hour every hour. All right, let's try exercise 2. Again, if you are ready, you may read the question, push pause, and come back to check in to see if you are correct. All right, if you're checking back in, you either need help or you are checking to see if you are correct. So we would read the problem fully. Braylon and Tice both work at a department store and are paid by the hour. The manager told the boys they both earn the same amount of money per hour, but Braylon and Tice did not agree. They each kept track of how much money they earned in order to determine if the manager was correct. Their data is shown below. Braylon, M equals 10.50 H, where H represents the number of hours worked. So this is how many hours. And M represents the amount of money Braylon was paid. So we can find out how much money he earned if we do the hours times 1050. Notice that juxtaposition again. They're right next to each other, which means side by side, need to multiply. Tice, if he worked 0 hours, obviously he's going to make $0. But when he worked 3 hours, he made $34.50. And 6 hours, he made $69. So how much did each person earn in 1 hour? So we want the unit rate. So for Braylon, we can find out the money by plugging in 1 for H. So if I do 1050 times 1, it would equal $10.50. So that's how much he made in 1 hour. For Tice, I need to discover the price per hour. So if it's 34.50 in 3 hours, how much does he make in 1 hour? And let me label these so I remember. This is Braylon. This is Tice. So divide by 3. 34.50 divided by 3. The decimal goes straight up. How many groups of 3 can I make out of 3? 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. 0. Bring down. 4. How many groups of 4 can I make out of 3? 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. 1. Bring down the 5. How many groups of 3 can I make out of 15? 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Bring down. And I still need a number up here. How many groups of 3 can I make out of 0? 0. So now I know that Tice was making $11.50 in 1 hour. So was the manager correct? Why or why not? So if we look up here, the manager told the boys they both earned the same amount of money per hour. Well, we can see that he was incorrect because Braylon makes $10.50 and Tice makes $11.50. So was the manager correct? No, the manager was incorrect. And then why or why not? Because Braylon makes, and we want to use our data here. We don't want to just say they make different amounts. We want to prove it. Braylon makes $10.50 an hour, which is $1 less than Tice's $11.50 per hour. So we're specific here. We give the data that we found in the problem, and we let them know that we understand that it's $1 less so that they are making different amounts. All right, again, attempt number 3 on your own. Check back for the feedback that you need at Part A and Part B, please. Okay, if you are back with me, you are ready to check in. We have Claire and Kate who are entering a cup stacking contest. Both girls have the same strategy. Stack the cups at a constant rate so that they do not slow down at the end of the race. While practicing, they keep track of their progress, which is shown below.